Why was Jack the Ripper never found in Victorian England? Today, we will explore the reasons why Jack the Ripper stayed hidden amidst all the murders and chaos in London. In 1888, the streets of Whitechapel in Victorian London became the center of one of history's greatest unsolved mysteries. A brutal serial killer known as Jack the Ripper murdered multiple women before disappearing without a trace. Jack the Ripper cut the throat of his victims and removed some of their organs, hinting that he might have had prior anatomical knowledge. Despite massive investigations and public panic, the killer was never identified. But the reason was not just because he was intelligent. The conditions of Victorian England itself made solving the crimes nearly impossible. Whitechapel was one of the poorest and most overcrowded areas in London. More than 80,000 people lived in cramped housing and crowded lodging houses. Poverty forced many people onto the streets at night, with crowded tenements and cheap one-day lodging houses being popular at the time. Along with poverty, crime was already common throughout the area. Because so many people constantly moved throughout Whitechapel, it became extremely difficult for police to identify suspicious individuals or track where anyone had gone. Jack the Ripper could move freely throughout the streets. The streets of Whitechapel created the perfect environment for someone trying to avoid capture. Most streets were poorly lit by weak lamps, while narrow alleyways and heavy fog reduced visibility even further. Murders often occurred late at night when very few people were around. After attacking his victims, Jack the Ripper could quickly disappear into the darkness before the police arrived. As the murders continued, fear spread rapidly across London. Newspapers constantly reported on the killings, causing widespread panic throughout Whitechapel. Crowds gathered near crime scenes, and rumors spread everywhere about who the killer might be. Many people became afraid to walk outside at night, while police faced enormous pressure to solve the crimes quickly. Along with the fear, the media played a major role in turning Jack the Ripper into a worldwide sensation. Newspapers competed to publish the most shocking stories and dramatic headlines. The brutality and fear of the murderer wasn't the most concerning thing for these newspaper companies. All they cared about was trying to make profit. Some newspapers even printed fake letters claiming to be from the killer himself, including the famous Dear Boss letter. These stories increased public hysteria and flooded police with false leads, making the investigation even more confusing. Police, during the Jack the Ripper investigation, struggled to manage the growing chaos surrounding this case. Detectives lacked modern investigative training, and communication between police divisions was often slow and disorganized. Officers had trouble controlling crowds, organizing evidence, and following hundreds of tips from the public. As pressure from newspapers and frightened citizens increased, the investigations became even more difficult for police to manage effectively. Crime scenes during the investigation were often crowded with police officers, reporters, and other curious civilians. Because crime scene protection was very limited in 1888, important evidence could easily be destroyed or contaminated. Witnesses also gave conflicting statements and visuals of the killer, making it difficult for detectives to determine what information was really accurate. Without reliable evidence, police struggled to build a clear understanding of who the killer was and what his identity is. Additionally, modern forensic science did not exist during the Jack the Ripper murders. Police had no DNA testing, fingerprint databases, or advanced crime lab technology. Investigators relied heavily on eyewitnesses' testimonies, which was often unreliable because the murders happened in the darkness of the night. Even if the police suspected someone, they had no scientific way to prove guilt beyond doubt. Over time, hundreds of people were accused of being Jack the Ripper. Suspects included doctors, butchers, immigrants, and virtually anybody who looked suspicious. Aaron Kosminski, for example, was a Polish Jew living in Whitechapel who was accused of being the murderer. Anti-Semitism played a big role in who police randomly accused of being the murderer. Another person, Montag Druitt, was a teacher who was very interested in surgery. Because Jack the Ripper had anatomical knowledge, some believed he was the killer. Druitt went on to become insane, and he was found dead shortly after the final murder. However, none of these accusations were supported by strong evidence. They were only just hypotheses. Public fear and desperation caused many innocent people to be unfairly blamed, while the real killer continued to remain unidentified. More than a century later, in the present day, the identity of Jack the Ripper remains unknown. Historians and investigators still debate who the killer may have been, but no theory has ever been proven. The mystery continues to fascinate people to this day because nobody knows what happened, who the killer was, and why they did it. In conclusion, Jack the Ripper escaped not only because he was careful, but because Victorian England lacked the ability needed to stop him. Overcrowding, dangerous streets, poverty, crime, media hysteria, weak policing, contaminated crime scenes, and limited forensic sciences all combined to keep the killer's identity hidden. In many ways, the society and period of Victorian London made solving the Jack the Ripper murders nearly impossible. Thank you for listening.